Trump versus Biden. They elected a liar. Trump failed to deliver his #1 campaign promise.
I am going to be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. Remember that.
And just 4 years later, Trump became the worst jobs president God had ever created. The worst jobs president in American history, with 6 million jobs lost during his tenure. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's presidency is under a different kind of scrutiny. His current mental state has raised eyebrows, with moments of forgetfulness and word-finding difficulties during debate.
I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020.
These blunders have fueled ongoing debates about his mental fitness for office. So can we trust a leader whose mental acuity is questioned almost daily? But hey, did you know that under Biden's administration, the US saw the fastest economic recovery from a major downturn in modern history? Yes. Unemployment plummeted from pandemic peaks, and the economy added millions of jobs, bouncing back at a pace that left many economists astounded. But can Biden handle the pressures of the presidency for another term? Is this really the leadership we need right now? As we gear up for the 2024 election, it's time to take a hard look at their promises. What did they achieve? And what could a future election win mean for the economy? Let's rewind to 2016. Remember the promises that got Trump elected? His campaign was built on bold promises. Take the wall on the southern border, for instance. Trump vowed to build a great wall and have Mexico pay for it. Bold, right? By the end of his term, about 450 miles of wall were built or reinforced, but only about 49 miles were entirely new construction. And Mexico footing the bill? That never happened. The funding came from US taxpayers, with funds diverted from military projects. And what about Obamacare? Trump promised to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, ACA, commonly known as Obamacare. That sounds straightforward enough, but despite multiple attempts, he couldn't get it through Congress. Even when Republicans controlled both houses, they fell short by a single vote in the Senate. Well, in terms of economic promises, Trump boasted he would revive the coal industry and bring back manufacturing jobs to the US. While there was some initial growth in manufacturing, the coal industry continued its decline due to market forces beyond presidential control. Furthermore, the COVID-19 pandemic severely impacted the economy, leading to a net loss of about 6 million jobs by the end of his term. This was a far cry from the millions of jobs promised during his campaign. However, not all of Trump's promises floundered. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was a legislative victory that slashed corporate tax rates from 35% to 21%, aiming to stimulate economic growth. While it did spark short-term economic gains and a booming stock market, critics argued the benefits disproportionately favored corporations and the wealthy. Did middle-class Americans truly see the promised benefits? The debate continues. Well, in short, Trump kept 25 promises, compromised on 23, and broke 54 of them. Looking ahead to Trump's 2024 campaign promises, the themes remain familiar but with renewed vigor. He pledges to seal the border and carry out the largest deportation operation in US history. He promises to end inflation, stop outsourcing, and transform the US into a manufacturing superpower. Sound ambitious? Definitely. Realistic? Time will tell. Trump also vows to implement large tax cuts for workers, eliminate taxes on tips, and build an American-made missile defense shield. He has also proposed bold but somewhat undefined initiatives to prepare America for the future, including the adoption of flying cars, the promotion of cryptocurrency, and the promise to construct 10 new freedom cities. But the question is, can he deliver on these promises, or will they encounter the same obstacles as before? Now let's take a closer look at Joe Biden's promises. Back in 2020, Biden made a plethora of promises, aiming to tackle everything from the COVID-19 pandemic to climate change, racial justice, and economic inequality. But how much of that has he actually delivered on? And what does it mean for his 2024 campaign? First, let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. Biden promised a robust response, and by many measures, he's delivered. The American Rescue Plan, a $1.9 trillion relief package, was passed early in his presidency. It provided direct payments to Americans, extended unemployment benefits, and funded vaccine distribution, which was crucial in achieving widespread vaccination. By July 2021, over 67% of American adults had received at least one vaccine dose, a significant milestone in the fight against the pandemic. On the economic front, Biden pledged to create jobs and support working families. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, a $1.2 trillion bill, was another major legislative win. This bill aims to rebuild America's infrastructure, create millions of jobs, and boost the economy. It's expected to fund roads, bridges, public transit, broadband internet, and clean energy projects. But did it solve everything? Not quite. Economic recovery has been uneven, with inflation hitting a 40-year high in 2022, affecting everyday living costs for many Americans. When it comes to climate change, Biden rejoined the Paris Agreement on his first day in office and has taken several steps to reduce carbon emissions. His administration has established new fuel economy standards and committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. However, efforts to pass more comprehensive climate legislation, like the Build Back Better Act, have been stalled in Congress. Now, let's get into racial justice. A cornerstone of Biden's campaign, he promised to address systemic racism and support marginalized communities. His administration has made strides in funding historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, with over $7 billion in investments. Yet this falls short of the $18 billion he initially pledged. Promises to reform the criminal justice system, such as decriminalizing marijuana and ending cash bail, have seen little progress, often stalled by political gridlock. On immigration, Biden aimed to undo many of Trump's policies and create a more humane system. He ended the travel bans on several Muslim-majority countries and attempted to roll back family separation policies. Yet comprehensive immigration reform, including a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, remains elusive in a divided Congress. As Biden campaigns for re-election in 2024, he has laid out new promises while doubling down on existing ones. Biden's main pitch to voters ahead of November is simple. They should vote for him because he is not Donald Trump. In speeches and political events since his re-election campaign began in earnest earlier this year, Biden has said that his second term would essentially be a continuation of his first. Let's finish this job. He has promised to protect American democracy, protect abortion rights, increase taxes on the wealthy, preserve the country's international alliances and agreements, and deliver on climate benchmarks. As of now, President Joe Biden has kept 28% of his campaign promises, compromised on 10%, broken 3%, stalled on 31%, and has 26% of promises still in progress. But the big question remains, can he deliver on these promises with a potentially divided Congress, especially with severe mental and physical illness? Let's talk about the potential economic impacts of the 2024 US presidential election, whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden wins. This isn't just a matter of red versus blue, it's about the future of our wallets, jobs, and even our planet. So let's dive into it. If Donald Trump wins, he's looking to double down on some of his favorite policies from his first term. Remember those corporate tax cuts? Trump's plan is to cut them even further. Now, some folks might say, didn't we already cut taxes? What's the point? Well, supporters argue that these cuts lead to a boom in investments and job creation. Indeed, corporate tax revenues almost doubled despite the lower rates, which is impressive. But this mainly benefits big corporations and the wealthy. So is this the right way to go? Are we just making the rich richer? Trump's aggressive stance on tariffs is another hot topic. He's proposing a 10% tax on all imports and a whopping 60% on goods from China. This could mean higher prices for everyday items. Can American families handle an extra $1,700 a year in costs due to these tariffs? The impact on inflation and consumer spending could be huge. And let's not forget his plan to oust Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Imagine the market chaos and uncertainty that would follow. Are we ready for that kind of instability? On the energy front, Trump wants to drill, baby, drill, more oil, more natural gas, more coal. It could lead to lower energy prices and even energy independence, but what about the global push towards renewable energy? How does this align with international climate goals? There's a lot at stake here, from jobs in emerging green sectors to the US's reputation on the global stage. Now, if Joe Biden wins, we can expect a very different approach. Biden is focusing on the middle class, aiming to raise taxes on the wealthy and increasing capital gains taxes. This is supposed to fund massive infrastructure projects and social programs. Sounds good, right? But will it actually reduce the national debt and address economic disparities effectively? There's a lot of skepticism about how this will play out in reality. Biden's trade policies are less about tariffs and more about mending relationships. This could mean more stable global markets and lower prices for consumers. But will it make American industries more competitive against giants like China? It's a tricky balance. And then there's the green energy push. Biden's already signed the Inflation Reduction Act to cut emissions and boost clean energy. Think about the potential for millions of new jobs in this sector. But how smoothly can this transition happen? Will the traditional energy sector push back hard? In a nutshell, the 2024 presidential election is a crossroads for the US economy. Trump's policies might give us a short-term boost, but at the risk of long-term stability and equity. Biden's approach aims for sustainable growth and reducing inequality, but comes with its own set of challenges. So who's your pick? The candidate who promises quick wins, but with risks, or the one aiming for a long-term sustainable approach? This election is about more than just two candidates. It's about two very different visions for America's future. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more exciting content. See you next time.